Parking a dog, Good morning, everybody, and again, thank you for having me back. I was just telling Richard that being here brings lots of great memories. I still remember standing and sitting and chatting with friends when I participated in the Braille House competitions when I was at school, and I still can't believe that I was a crazy little guy that in my first competition, I remember I was set to do a reading challenge and I backed out. I said, no, I'm not going to do it. But somehow I'm here and I'm speaking to you, and oh man, the world has many, many changes. Before I continue, I want to pay my respects to the traditional owners of the land in which we stand, past, present, and emerging, and acknowledge that Braille House has been here and allowing us to learn and progress our abilities to read, write, and express our information in ways that 300 years ago wasn't possible. So, I'm going to go back and ask a very simple question that might seem a bit crazy, but who here knows how to spell? And I know it sounds crazy, right? It's a question that you think, oh, well, I know how to spell, or I know how to spell the few things. But if we don't read Braille, we are illiterate. And I say that because in today's day and age, we have computers that talk to us, we have trains that talk to us, we have people that read to us, we have phone apps that scan documents for us, and we have all sorts of things that allows people with disabilities to understand print media and anything that isn't in Braille. But if I were to say to somebody who has never read in Braille or in print or in any capacity, but has always heard the language, to spell the word enough, they might not get it right. And how do I know that? Is because when I arrived in Australia without a word of English and realized that English is not a phonetic language like Spanish, a few words definitely killed me. And I go back to those days when I arrived in Australia back in 2009, where my English was very limited, because it's the same as when a child is starting to learn Braille, or the same as when somebody who is losing their vision at a later stage in their life is starting to learn Braille, because you have to figure out a way to get information. And yes, as I said, you can do that listening to podcasts, listening to your phone, scanning documents, but I wouldn't be able to write the reports that I need to write. I wouldn't be able to understand where to put colon, semicolon, parentheses, brackets, exclamation marks, question marks, you name whatever it is, I wouldn't know where to put them, because the computer doesn't tell me. The computer tries to mimic the ability of humans when you see a comma, when you see a period, and it tries to mimic the cadence, but it doesn't tell you what it is that is there. So, okay, Braille is important, that's all well and good, but I have a bit of an issue with it, and here is my issue. Braille is a beautiful language, and I wish I could read more of it, but Braille is difficult to produce, as you guys are very well aware. Braille is difficult to distribute, as you guys are very well aware, and it isn't because we need more volunteers, but that is one of the reasons. But it's also because of the size, right? You look at a book, a regular book, and you can write a book in as thin of a paper as you want, and the thinner you make it, the thinner the overall book is going to be. You can't do that with Braille. And a printer costs $100, or 200, or 1,000, and with $1,000 you get a heck of a regular printer, and you can print as many books in your life, and Bob's your uncle. Braille is another kettle of fish. I remember in high school I had a math book, and each year the math book was taller than me if you stacked all of the books together, and that was just, I think it was 15 chapters or so. So it wasn't a lot, but it was a massive thing to carry. And when I had to do homework, I remember taking that book home, and when I say taking that book, I remember taking one chapter or half a chapter And if my homework for some reason required another chapter and I wasn't aware of that, I needed to wait until the next day to get that information. And because of all of that, because of the amazing work you guys do here at producing Braille and the amazing support that it gives to people like myself and to everybody else who reads Braille, I decided, you know what, it's very difficult to be in a position where simply accessing information is a struggle. I don't want to be the person that goes to a restaurant and says, I can't read that unless I have $1,000 phone and a $2,000 app that can scan that. Yes, I know that there are cheaper phones and I know that you don't have to pay for some apps, but my point still stands. I don't want to be the person that can't study engineering or can't study law or can't study, pick whatever it is that you want to study, because the information is difficult to produce. And because of all of that, it's important to talk about Braille. And Braille isn't just about producing books. Braille is about finding ways of implementing Braille signs in buildings that actually make sense. And just bear with me in this one. There are 20 signs at university, this is QUT, that I know of that absolutely mean nothing to a Braille user. And these are signs that were placed there and they look very professionally done, because they are professionally done. But one room is supposed to say S905B. The sign says S9052. Okay, fair enough. If you're a competent Braille user, you say, okay, I think this is supposed to be a B, maybe. You can make the distinction. But there is a sign that is supposed to say M430. And that sign says M, number sign, full stop, hyphen, and if you don't know what you're looking for, it's irrelevant of how competent you are, you got nothing. And I can keep going down that list, but not even looking at the difficulty of producing actual books and producing tactile graphics, when we go back to the basics, such as those signs, we don't even have that information right. And again, it's very difficult because outside of this room in Queensland, I'm sure we can say there are very few people in the world, well, in Queensland and in the world, that can make good Braille, distribute that Braille, check that that Braille is correct, and share that information with all the agencies and companies and individuals that need to put signs up, that produce Braille books, that produce Braille menus. And because of that, Braille is dying. And I don't want Braille to die, because that would suck big time. And on top of that, that would make me illiterate. And I kind of like reading. But I'm trying to bring back all of this rant, because it is a rant, let's face it, all of this rant, and say, I wouldn't be able to be where I am if it wasn't for Braille. When I started my grade 8, grade 8, that's it, I was learning how to read at like grade 1 because my English was pretty bad. And I needed to learn the basics, the cat, sat, blah, blah, blah. All the little things that as a Braille user, if you are born here and if you're blind from birth, you learn from the very beginning. But as somebody who learns Braille, who appreciates what it gives to me, and who is also able to understand that if it wasn't for Braille, I wouldn't be able to study my degree, as hard as that is to believe. Braille plays a big factor in electrical engineering. I know that there are a lot of people in high school right now, a lot of people in primary school that say, I don't want to learn Braille, it seems like a waste of time. It seems like a lot of effort for not much return. And we can't have that. We really, really can't have that, because we will become illiterate, and on top of being illiterate, we're disabled. And let's face it, the world doesn't look too kind at people who have disabilities at the moment. We're trying to change that, but if we're illiterate and people look a little bit down on us, it makes it really hard for us to make progress, for us to apply for grants, for us to ask for change, for us to improve accessibility in buildings, in public transport, in digital content. So all of this ranting aside, all of this talk, I just want to conclude with one thing. I wouldn't be going to the United Nations this year again if it wasn't for you guys. I wouldn't be speaking English right here in front of you if it wasn't for the work that you guys do. I wouldn't be studying my degree, as crazy as it is, if it wasn't for Braille. And I wouldn't be going on a 3-month trip looking at public transport accessibility across the world if it wasn't for all the information that I have been able to obtain through Braille, for the information I have been able to produce and produce it well as a result of knowing how to read. So while it might seem difficult sometimes, while it might seem daunting sometimes, the work that you guys are doing and the work that everybody who's working with Braille is doing is immensely powerful. And I thank you very much, because if it wasn't for it, I wouldn't be speaking English, I don't think. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.